All right, good evening, everyone. Today is January 25th, 2024. It's the regular session of your Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. Welcome to this meeting. Before I call the meeting to order, I want to announce that some commissioners, staff, and the public are attending remotely via Zoom, by phone, or on site. All participants joining by phone, please mute your phones at this time when not speaking to avoid any background noise. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so that the public who is observing knows exactly who is speaking. And when you speak, make sure that you please speak directly into the microphone so the public can hear your comments. Make sure it's at an audible level so an accurate record of your comments can be recorded by the clerk for this meeting. This is critical given the number of remote participants and its current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General's office. I'll now call this meeting to order. Clerk, roll call, please.
Roll call. Townsend,
Present.
Burns,
Here.
Ramirez,
Here.
Hill,
Here.
Kane,
Here.
Lopez,
Here.
Stites,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Bynum,
Here.
Burrows,
Here.
Garner.
Here, thank you, clerk. I'd ask everyone to please stand at this time. Our invocation is going to be given tonight by Pastor Annie Ericas, followed immediately by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would you bow your heads, please? Almighty God, I am so grateful for each person here, for those in front of me, Mayor Garner, the commissioners, county administrator, and other government representatives, and for those behind me, members of the community in which we live. Help us to remember that we are all on the same team. All of us have a vested interest in this community and want to make it even better than it already is. Each one of us has something to offer. Grant that we would put our gifts and skills to good use. Give us wisdom and creativity to address the issues at hand. Above all, Lord God, give us a spirit of camaraderie and unity as we work together for the good of Kansas City, Kansas, and Wyandotte County. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. Clerk, are there any revisions to tonight's agenda?
Yes, Mayor, there is a revision. The agenda update that was just published is being removed. Those items will be referred to committees for further action.
Thank you. That takes us to the mayor's agenda. We have several items. We have item number 1 and 2. Clerk, if you can give a brief overview of those items.
Item number 1 is a proclamation. Now therefore, I, Tyrone Garner, Mayor, CEO of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, do hereby proclaim January 19th, 2024 as Dr. Marvin McIntosh Day in Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. Item 2, proclamation. Now therefore, I, Tyrone Garner, Mayor, CEO of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, do hereby proclaim January 19th, 2024 as Mr. Robert Milan Senior Day in Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas.
Thank you, clerk. The next item on the mayor's agenda is a presentation from USD 500. We're glad to have the leadership here. I believe we have Dr. Stubblefield, who's the superintendent, who is coming forward. And I'll ask our chief of staff, well, she's not here. Mr. Rios, did you have any opening remarks?
Good evening, Commission, Mayor, and County Administrator. As I have pledged to you on previous occasions, part of my responsibility in the mayor's office is to be the education liaison and to keep you informed of matters that the education community is dealing with and giving you that information firsthand. So we have had previous opportunities for the educational entities to speak to the commission. And some of that was a first. And this is probably a first of where a educational entity, the Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools, will be informing you of a bond issue. This bond issue will be for $420 million. To put it in context, and why I believe this is important, is that in 2023, we had 27 economic development projects that totaled $453 million. This is a positive for the community and something to be celebrated. Understand that the voters in May will have the opportunity to nearly double that. One vote for a $420 million bond, the impact of which will be felt throughout our Kansas City, Kansas community. And so therefore, it is definitely an honor for me to introduce to you the superintendent of schools for the Kansas City, Kansas Public School District, and that's Anna Stubblefield.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Anna Stubblefield. I'm the superintendent for Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools, and it's a privilege to be here to share this information with you. I do want to take a quick moment just to acknowledge some of my team that's here with me. Mr. Steve Lilly is our Chief Operations Officer. Dr. Judith Campbell is the Deputy Superintendent, and Mr. Edwin Birch is the Executive Director of Marketing and Communications. I only introduce them because if you have questions, any of them could be called up here anytime because they may have more in-depth knowledge. So before I jump into the presentation, I don't want to make any assumptions about what everyone knows about Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools. We serve approximately 21,000 students. We have 5 high schools, 7 middle schools, 28 elementary schools, 10 preschool sites, and 5 alternative programs. We have over 60 languages spoken in our school. The top 5 are Spanish, Kirin, Burmese, Swahili, and Nepali. Our demographic breakdown is 58% Hispanic, 22% Black, 7% white, 7% Asian, and 6% other. Just a few other notable things. We have established a North Star that by 2031, 101% of our students who graduate will graduate with a Diploma Plus endorsement with no disparities in race or gender subgroups while meeting or exceeding the average state graduation rate. And if you're wondering where we are in regards to that goal, 61% of our students last year graduated with a Diploma Plus. Diploma Plus is what the entire greater Kansas City area is working towards. You may hear real world learning, market value access, and all of the districts have made a commitment to ensure when our students leave our schools that they are ready for what's next for them. One other, before I jump into it, I just also I think another unique thing about Kansas City, Kansas, and it's only a few other districts in the state that has this experience. Of the students who are in our district, 38.7% are identified as English language learners with 63 different languages spoken, and 56.9% of the students living in a home where a language other than English is spoken. Spanish is the most common language, with 66% of our Spanish-speaking students identified as ELL. And across all languages, a total of 8,000 of our 21,000 students receive services in this area. So without further ado, I will now share with you the presentation. Is it up? As this is being pulled up, I will give a little background. Last fall, I believe, my dates may be off, the board approved for a comprehensive facility master plan to be taken. And so all of the facilities throughout the district were examined and looked at to determine what is needed for them to be updated and or what the state of the facilities were. As a part of this process. There were several community members that serve on that. One of them is Alan House, and I just do want to thank him for participating in being a part of that. And all of the things that are a part of this presentation came from feedback from surveys from our students, staff, and the entire community. So I just wanted to share that. This was adopted, and I just shared that the bond resolution would be on the ballot for May 7th, 2024. And as Mr. Rios shared, it would be for $420 million. And what is proposed in that is demo and combining 6 elementaries, and it shows you there what those are and the cost of each of those. And that includes demo and combining Silver City and Noble Prentice, Eugene Ware and Lindbergh, Emerson and New Stanley, and then middle school, Central Middle School and Argentine Middle School. And you can see the cost difference for the different levels of school. The next couple of drawings are actually conceptual and possibilities. None of this has truly been finalized, but this is just showing that by combining Emerson and New Stanley, the new site can go on the Emerson site, and it shares with you the information around about the size and what it will look like, where it could go. Same for Silver City and Noble Prentice. It shares that it would go on the site where Noble Prentice currently is, and that Lindbergh and Eugene Ware can go on the site where Eugene Ware is. A new Argentine Middle could go where Silver City currently is, and New Central, we have looked at conceptually at the current site. It is not ideal, but there is not a location that has been identified, so that is still being explored if the bond were to pass. So the other things that are included in is a new district aquatic center, expanding our early childhood capacity, and a new main library. So I'll talk a little bit about the 2 of those items in a little more detail. The new district aquatic center, what we envision is we already have regular meetings with Parks and Rec and talk about how we can gain the most by leveraging and collaborating our dollars together. So we imagine that this will be something that will be fully accessible to the community, while also at the same time providing multiple opportunities for our students. And with the new main library, it shows up to 20 million. And that project is already happening and moving forward, but this would allow it to be done. And part of the mill that it's already been collected for that, of that 1.5, if the bond was passed, that mill would go away. And so the library would then just roll over into the bond. Other things that are a part of this is building additions to the M.E. Pearson Elementary and Whittier Elementary, Transportation South, and there we have some ADA and some other issues that we need to address. Also on this is additional gyms at both Harmon and Sligo. Harmon and Sligo are one of a few high schools in the area that does not have a second gym. And this again is conceptual of where it can go. As same, these are like where the additions would go. The Sligo High School gym showing it on the current property, as well as Harmon receiving an additional gym. And then these are all remodels and facility upgrades that need to be done in order to address some challenges that we experience. And then the next slide is in regard to deferred maintenance, and that's the total cost for each of the different areas. So I know this is definitely an important piece. What would it cost our taxpayers? What would it cost taxpayers? And what we've highlighted here is on an $125,000 home, The cost would be an additional $122.19 per year. It's broken down by monthly as well as daily. And the same for commercial property, what it would cost on a commercial property at $150,000 is $318.75 a year, $26 a month, or 87 cents a day. This last slide shows what is unique to schools when you do pass a bond. There is state aid that is provided. So when school districts pass a bond, we would pay for 69% of it, and then the state pays for 31% of it. So there is an advantage when school districts do pass bonds around that. Just a few other things that I'll note, and then definitely take any questions. Just some factual information. The tax delinquency rate is already calculated in the mill levy, as well as the reserve to maintain the mill levy rate. So there have been some questions around, would this fluctuate the amount? It doesn't. The calculation is done on the front end. So what it is saying on $125,000 house or whatever house, that's the actual cost, because all of the risk and those things are factored into the cost. Currently, the mill levy for bond can only be used for principal and interest on the bond, and taxes are based on 11.5% of the assessed valuation of residential property. And under state law, taxes are generated by the assessed valuation of property, not market value. So with that, last thing I'll say, also, some of this, people may think, you can just, why can't you keep what you have and maintain it? All of the buildings that we show, most of them have modular units or mobile classrooms. And our newest modular outdoor or mobile classroom or trailers, they are referred to a lot of different terms, are 18 years old and are past their functional use. And these units were never meant for permanent solutions for classrooms. And in all of our facilities, those situations exist. And yes, we are maintaining, but there are challenges throughout several of our schools. One example that I will use is during COVID, we installed water bottle fillers in all of our schools. Some of our schools, because of the structure and the plumbing and how old it is, the water bottle fillers cannot be used at a functional level because they flood. And so that creates its own challenges. And so in those cases, those schools don't have access to water bottle fillers because they just can't be used based off of the plumbing and piping and that kind of stuff. It's a little out of my realm, but we ran into the issue once they were installed. So with that, I will pause and be happy to take any questions. And if I don't have the answer tonight, I will be happy to get back with you.
Thank you, Superintendent. And we have a question from Commissioner Kane.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you introduce your two elected body folks?
I am so sorry, I did not. Board President Randy Lopez is here and Vice President Miss Maxine Drew. Thank you. I apologize for
And
that.
would either one of them like to talk?
They said no.
I've never met a president that didn't want to run their mouth. There we go.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, members of the commission. Thank you, Commissioner Kane, for the opportunity. Thank you, Commission and Mayor, for the opportunity. I think from the district, the Board of Education, we're really excited about this potential opportunity for our community. Dr. Stubblefield has done a great job of laying out the information of what this potential bond, if passed, would look like for our community. We do have a lot of outdated facilities, but I think more so this is a great opportunity for our community, for us, for the members of the commission, for the unified government to work alongside the school district to continue to find ways to bring improvements for our community as a whole. So I'm excited for this. I thank the commission for allowing us to share this information with you tonight. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have for us. Again, I think, this is just a great opportunity for us. One thing I'll highlight that I think is important to share as well is some of these improvements will help with the safety and security of our district as a whole. When you have outdated facilities and older buildings, and just in the society that we're in now, we just have to keep that top of mind. How do we keep our students, our staff, and our community safe as well? And this will help us to do that. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity tonight. And we look forward to hearing back from you.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a question from Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question and comment. The one question I have is, when was the last time the district put on the ballot a bond and it was passed?
The previous bond was 2016.
2016.
And I would say about 80%, my math may be a little off, of the things that are on here, there was supposed to be a phase 2 to the 2016 bond. And at that time, majority of the stuff, when it was calculated, it was around 230 or 40 million. But because of the delays and the acceleration of costs, this is where the cost is. So a lot of these things, especially like the schools and the deferred maintenance and stuff, that was supposed to be phase 2 after 2016.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I was just curious of when was the last time
Yeah.
I was trying to think myself, but
Yeah.
I couldn't. I believe I may be the only one who works in the education realm at the moment. I'm the strong believer education is the bedrock of any community. If you don't have a fully well-functioning education system, you need it, because education is the key to advancement in life. And I strongly believe that, and we could have the best curriculum, the best staff, the best leadership in our school district, but if we don't have the facility, the space and the buildings to implement that education, that curriculum, it doesn't work. And it's an investment in our community. It's investment in our children. Now, I support this, but it's up to the community. It's going to be the community's choice to decide if they want this or not. But I would say for me, I do support it, because I know I work in a school that is it's a very old school. We were outgrowing it at some places, and it's a building that is hard to keep up. So I understand. And out of the proposed new facilities, 3 out of the 5 are in my district. And I know these buildings very, very well. I grew up in Argentina. I know Silver City. I have niece and nephew who currently go to Silver City. I had a niece who went to New Stanley. I have a nephew who was about to leave Argentine Middle School. And so I know these buildings very, very well. And I know they are past their lifetime. And it would be an investment to the students, to the community, and to families overall. And so I support it, but again, it's up to the community to decide which way this goes. I want to thank you, Doctor, and your staff and the school board and all the teachers for everything that they do. It's not an easy job. Being an educator is not an easy job, but it's a very heartwarming job. And so I just thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you, Mayor. Not a question, just a comment that has an anecdote that goes with it. My father, who passed away in 2015, was one of the wisest men I've ever known and will ever know. He gave his life to young people in this community. Multiple years ago, when the district was contemplating closing Bethel and White Church and combining into a new elementary, my grandfather attended White Church. My father attended White Church. I attended Bethel. My children attended White Church. And I was having a reaction. I did not like the concept of closing historic White Church School at all. And this was after the time that my father had passed away. And this may seem strange, but it has happened to me on a number of occasions where he will come to me and tell me something important that I need to pay attention to. And I was really struggling with the closure of these schools, especially White Church. And he came to me and he said, Melissa, it's for the children. And with that, all of my doubts and fears about doing that were gone. And it's for the children. That's why you all do what you do every day. I don't do that. But I really appreciate that you and the board understand the importance. Our children in this district deserve to have facilities that meet modern needs and help prepare them for the future. And I know that's what my dad would say to me. And so I will say that to you. I appreciate the effort that you're making. And I do understand that the voters will decide. But I sincerely appreciate that you are trying to bring to our kids a chance at a bright future. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lopez.
Yeah, I just had a question here. I was going over your homeowners' properties, your tax implication, your commercial properties. Was this evaluated when in the 2016 on that bond? Because I mean, 125,000 for a home was pretty cheap, and then especially I don't know commercial property that's 150,000. I mean, that's
So this is evaluated in 2023. This was done at the end. The average, what the information that was gathered by the company who did it, determined that the average house in Kansas City, Kansas, that attendance area is $150,000. So these are current numbers. And I think what you, the point that I made at the end, and if Mr. Lilly, if I don't necessarily answer it, but I think it's important to know that it is based off of the taxes are based on 11.5% of the assessed valuation of a residential property. And so that may be able to answer your question around it. It's based off of, that's what it's based off.
well,
of.
that's I mean, that's what I'm looking at right now. Was our taxes or what values are as of last year to right now, and I'm just grabbing houses in Kansas City, Kansas, and yeah, they're around 200 grand, on an average. But I mean, I'm just saying, would that throw numbers off?
No, if you go down where it says a $200,000 house, it would be 195, and it's about 5% of whatever your house value is.
Okay, so we're just, instead of looking at the numbers, it's a percentage, so 1.5% increase altogether, wherever the value of your home or your taxes are, that you're saying.
Yeah, if my math is right, it's about 1%. I don't know if it's 1.5, because if you look at $125,000 house is $122. If you look at a $200,000 house, it's $195.
And where we got that information, that's US Census information on the median household costs in the district, right?
Okay, so let's just move on down here to the commercial properties. That's just a huge gap, it's a huge difference, obviously, but 150,000 for even commercial property is, I mean, that's I don't know where they came up with that number. But still, is that a 1.5% on that too?
That's close.
But those are just an example. So whatever the actual value is, that's what the actual cost would be. But if you look at like the math or the ratio, you could predict or project it out. We just highlighted like the, what the census says was the
Right,
average.
right. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it just look like low numbers, but then when the actual facts come out, are we gonna, that's all. I was just wanting to double check here.
Yeah, and it will be different for each household or commercial property depending on the value of it. That factual part is correct. Like if you look at the increase as the value increase, the cost increase, yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. Just like to say to Dr. Stubblefield and her team, thank you for the presentation. I remember being on the Board of Education during phase one when the other bond issue was passed. And one of the things we were very excited about was the opportunity to get swimming pools in the district that were working. And so to see that that's part of what's in this plan is exciting. And I would agree that we definitely need those improvements and appreciate the work that you all do every day just for our kids. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening to my fellow commissioners and to Dr. Stubblefield and Dr. Campbell, Mr. Lilly, Board President Randy Lopez, and Vice President Maxine Drew. Sorry I couldn't be there in person with you tonight. I just wanted to recap from the information presented, just some basic information to make sure I understand. And I'll start with the tax issue. Bottom line, regardless of whether you're in a $125,000 home, $50,000 home, 250 on the resident side, the bond, if passed, will have a cost that will increase what homeowners are currently paying, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just to simplify that. Let me go back then to where Commissioner Hill left off, which caught my attention, which was the proposed new district aquatic center as Parks and Rec contemplates what we do with Parkwood. This is particularly near and dear to my heart. So all of these proposed developments, what I'm interested in is knowing what the timeframes for relative completion of these. In particular, let's talk about the aquatic center. If passed, what would be the estimated start of such a center and the estimated date for a completion on a center like that?
So those details have not been worked out. Specifically, the two that I'll talk about independently, they're a little different than the schools, the aquatic center and the main library. Once a site is identified and the designs are done, those will happen much quicker than schools, because schools you have to stage, plan, and because it impacts kids. And so you have to work around people who are actually in those facilities. So I don't want to, what I would say, those two would happen probably faster than the schools, because like you saw the staging of Argentine can't happen until after Silver City happened and so forth and so on. Those two are independent of school planning, so they would probably happen sooner than later. We can get some information to look at what the time frame does it take from once you have your design to construct a new aquatic center, and then we can share that information back.
I appreciate that. I understand what you're saying. These particular undertakings could happen at a different pace than what it will take for the schools. As they consider the aquatic center, is it the thought now to have that open just so kids from all schools I guess, I don't know, starting at the high school level, I don't know, would go there if there is no aquatic facility or no pool in their school? What's the overall thinking of this center? And would it be open during the summer? Would it be open only to students currently enrolled in USD 500?
So what we imagine and what has been talked about is that, yes, during the school day or those kind of things, schools that don't have access, it would provide access. But we imagine that it will be open year round and having a MOU with Parks and Rec, so it is accessible to the entire community, not just students in who are enrolled in school, but that it is a community utilized facility with that is open to all of the community, with the understanding that during certain things that schools may have priority over it, but majority of the use would be for the entire community.
Okay, I can't, if this is something that will be under the auspices of USD 500, I can't overemphasize how important US 500D's role is to getting kids trained to swim. I think Sumner's pool is still down. And on average, when I attended there, I know it's been some years ago, but on average, there is an opportunity to train 400 to 500 kids in a whole academic year. That's being lost now without that available. So I don't know if this proposed aquatic center would mean there no longer be an active swimming pool at Sumner, but to have a place where kids who are in school every day and have transportation provided for to get there, something like this would be invaluable to curing the ongoing problem, not just locally, but nationally, of getting lifeguards to support any of the pools we have around here, the public pools. All right, so I'm happy to hear about that, and we'll be following that. With regard to the other proposed plans, just in general, if this went forward currently, what is the projected time frame for completion of all these projects? We looking at another 5 years, 10 years?
All projects would be completed within 5 years.
Okay, in 5 years.
That is like the typical cycle when bonds like this occur. Yeah.
Okay. And with the need for these new facilities, I guess from the growth of students in USD 500, do you anticipate as we get new facilities, what that might mean to the need for more educators, more teachers, or there's no relationship between the new buildings and the head count you would need for teachers?
So there is room for growth, but these facilities really are being built for the students that we currently serve. And if currently, if our enrollment increases, we increase the staff because we have a ratio from which we operate. So that would continue.
So it would be the enrollment that would drive whether or not you need more teachers, not
Correct.
necessarily the new building itself.
Correct.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'll continue to watch this with interest, and particularly the aquatic center. Thank you.
So one thing I do just want to not clarify, but to share is that we currently, and we continue with Parks and Rec and the YMCA, do have a Learn to Swim program during the school years, primarily with our elementary students, but the last summers and we've had middle and high school students, and we have talked about and are working towards making sure, like during the school year, that with that collaboration that we are teaching swimming to more students. An aquatic center would make, that to happen at a faster rate, but we do right now have a ongoing relationship with the YMCA and Parks and Rec around teaching swimming to our students.
Right. I appreciate that so much. Again, I hope that with the aquatic center and whatever pools are open, I guess Wyandotte has a pool and Washington. It's so essential, though, to have swimming available to those high school kids. So you don't have to wait for the young kids at the Y who may be about their grade school, middle school, so 10 years old or less. So you can overcome that gap because you have to be at least 16 to be brought on board as a lifeguard. So with that aquatic center, I hope that as many high school age kids are put in these programs as part of the curriculum. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're keeping an eye on it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Davis.
Thank you, Mayor, Dr. Stubblefield, President Lopez, Vice President Drew, to your staff. Thank you so much for coming. I know we've had other school districts that have passed bond measures. They've not come and we've not necessarily asked. And so for you all to take this step is quite frankly an act of professional bravery, because I know that you're still working out a lot of the details and there's a lot of interest and questions. But thank you all for coming. I do want to ask some questions about the childhood capacity and kind of just what you all's vision is. I serve on the Raising Wyco committee, which I know y'all have some representation on that, and childcare is a both local and national crisis. So is there a vision for what this would be and how it would impact our community?
Yeah, as I shared earlier, currently we have 10 early childhood sites. 3 or 4 of them are independent, others are within the school facilities. So what we envision is adding more spaces, whether we redo a standalone like we have, or as we build out the new elementaries, creating wings because they are in different areas of the community to provide more access, because we know like there's not enough early childhood opportunities for students. So that we envision just providing more seats for families so that they can access it ideally within their neighborhoods or their home schools.
Awesome. And I want to talk about another kind of proposed for new facilities, the library, which I think is very exciting. If you look at other cities and other communities, their libraries are much more than just checking out books. They become, quite frankly, the first line of service along with our public safety departments for houselessness. They become kind of public squares. They become safe places for kids to do podcasts and gaming and learning. And so I'm excited. I know that for USD 500, we already pay kind of that percentage within our property taxes, and there's some money there. Did you explain kind of what the plan is to combine that money that's been saved and what's proposed in this bond?
So yes, so currently there are 2 mills assessed that goes towards the library capital improvement, for lack of a better word. And it's right now, and it's I think like $21 million there. So this, by including it in the bond, 1.5 of that, because the other 0.5 would have to be there for maintenance and upkeep, would go away. And then up to 20 million would go towards making the new main library happen. So I know the Library Foundation has committed to fundraising, but this would allow, like, close the gap between waiting on the mill to occur enough dollars for them to move forward. And as you talked about the site, one of the things that as we've looked or as I've looked and been in other places, both schools and libraries, as they build new ones, do have that aspect of being more accessible to communities. So having access so that you don't have to go through the building, or that those components, those spaces are not dependent upon like the regular library hours, and engaging with community partners, and not so that they would have access to address those things that you're saying. It is very common in lots of spaces, and even in the greater metropolitan area. If you look at some of the new libraries that just have been built more recently, they all have like a wing or something that's accessible for a variety of reasons.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome, awesome. I'm curious, I didn't see anything about Sumner on here, and I know I've already hit kind of a really, really hot topic by even saying that. But can you, if there's any updates, particularly on the football field and kind of what is going on there, can you just provide just some general updates regarding Sumner?
So Sumner, there's money set aside for the Sumner football field. There, Sumner is a historic site, a historic building. There are some sewer lines and stuff that have to get taken care of before those things are in motion and in process. And once that's done, the new field will be installed. While Sumner and lots of schools are not mentioned specifically here, when you see like the technology, the FEE, all of those things, majority of our schools, when I say majority, you know, we do have some newer schools. They probably won't be touched as much, but all of the schools will see some upgrades and improvements, including Sumner.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. The last thing I'll say is I know folks look at this and they say, okay, you know, the budget is tight, right? A lot of families are dealing with a lot of stress, right? Of what it means to make ends meet, which is completely right understood. At the same time, there are real needs. And from a government perspective, the way that I see this is if you look at what is making some of these other communities thrive, it starts with schools, right? When I moved, you know, when I was a kid and parents and we were looking at, okay, where do we move? The first thing they said were, where are the good schools, right? I'll find a job, I'll find a church, I'll find whatever, but we're going to anchor ourselves with a good education system. And so I see this as a proposal for economic growth, which will be an investment, but that's what it takes. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner King.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm glad you guys brought up the library. It's tremendously important. I was working on getting a library in the Piper School District since 2008. And they killed it. And I think and for every reason that you guys just talked about is why Piper needs one. And it's one of the most disappointing nights that I ever saw when people that I know got up and spoke against the library. And, you know, in 2005, when I ran, I talked about multiple things. And back then I wasn't a senior, but now I'm a senior citizen. So the seniors brought us to our todays. The students bring us to our tomorrows, and our futures in you guys' hands. And I appreciate what you do. I'm glad you're getting a library. Anytime you can get some help for me to get one out west in Piper, I'd much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners, and thank you, Doctor. Appreciate your presentation. Thank you, President Lopez and Vice President Drew, as well as the executive staff with USD 500. I know that this information is going to be really valuable and helpful to our residents as you navigate through this process. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to the regular consent agenda. Do any members of the commission or county administrator wish to set aside any items on the regular consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the regular consent agenda will be voted on
David, second.
by one vote. I will accept the motion and the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Roll call Townsend,
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Kane. Lopez,
Aye.
Stites, Davis.
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows. Motion carries.
Thank you. That takes us to the standing committee agenda. The first item under the standing committee agenda is approval of a resolution authorizing the automatic mutual aid agreement with the Kansas City, Kansas Fire Department, Edwardsville, the city of Edwardsville, and the Bonner Springs Fire Departments respectively to provide proper fire and emergency services to all of the unified government area of span and control. This item was heard by the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee chaired by Commissioner Burrows on Monday, January 22nd, 2024, and approved to be fast tracked to this meeting tonight. I'll ask Commissioner Burrows to make the opening remarks.
Thank you, Mayor. There was much discussion and the two chiefs from Bonner Springs and Edwardsville have signed on to the document. They're just waiting on this commission's action this evening to advance this issue forward. And the mutual aid agreement is beneficial to all of Wyandotte County and our residents in the community.
Move for approval.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk roll call.
Roll call Townsend,
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Kane. Lopez,
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, chiefs.
Mayor, Commission and staff, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That takes into the next item. The second item under the standing committee's agenda is approval of a resolution related to 8 projects identified generally in the 2013 EPA consent decree and the 2020 Stormwater 7 Basin Deficiency Study. This item was heard by the Public Works and Safety Committee, chaired by Commissioner Burrows on Monday, January 22nd, 2024. I'll ask and fast track to tonight's meeting for your disposition. Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you, Mayor. This just allows staff to start the proceedings to take eminent domain action and negotiation actions for the property. And this is dealing with the consent decree that comes with heavy penalties should we not move forward.
Is there a motion?
So move.
There's a motion second. Any further comments, discussion? Seeing none, clerk roll call.
Roll call Townsend,
Aye.
Burns,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Kane. Lopez.
Aye.
Stites, Davis.
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
That takes us to the next item under the standing committee's agenda for approval. Is resolution related to 6 projects identified during the 2020 Stormwater 7 Basin Deficiency Study. This item was heard by the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee chaired by Commissioner Burrows on Monday, January 22nd, 2024, and approved to be fast tracked to tonight's meeting for disposition. Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you, Mayor. Much like the one before us, this is authorizing staff to once again enter into survey and acquire the right and power of eminent domain for the location, laying out and reconstruction, expansion, repair, and maintenance of the sewer and stormwater projects.
Okay, is there a motion?
So move.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk roll call.
Roll call Townsend,
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Kane. Lopez,
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Takes to the last item under the standing committee's agenda for approval. It is submission of a grant to the National Associations of County and City Health Officials addressing vaccine hesitancy. The item was heard by the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee chaired by Commissioner Bynum on Monday, January 22nd, 2024, and approved to be fast tracked at tonight's meeting for your disposition. Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you, Mayor. Our phenomenal epidemiologist with the Health Department is here. I would introduce her, but I cannot pronounce her name. But she's great. And she brought this to us along with the Health Department. A couple of really important components here. Number one, no match required. Those are always great grants to receive. And addressing vaccine hesitancy, as she pointed out to us at the committee level, every school district is dealing with vaccine rates for our young people that are not quite high enough, not high enough to the level we would like them to be. And so this grant is going to assist the health department in working with those districts to address that and try to get our vaccine rates improved and increased. With that, I would make a motion.
There is
To
a
approve.
motion. Is there a second?
David, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk roll call.
Roll call. Townsend,
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Kane. Lopez.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners. There's no further items on tonight's agenda to be discussed. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
David, second.
There's a motion and a second. Clerk roll call.
Roll call. Townsend,
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Kane. Lopez.
Aye.
Stites. Davis.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We are adjourned.
Sure.